All right, let's talk GCSE maths. You ever look at a paper and wonder exactly how the marks are given out? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain. We're going to dive deep into question 4 from a Pearson Edexcel paper, and here's the cool part. We're using the official mark scheme as our map. Let's get right into it.
So here it is. This is the exact page from the mark scheme for question 4. We're going to focus on this for the next few minutes, breaking it down piece by piece. First up, we've got part A, which is all about a probability tree. Then we'll hit part B, a calculation that builds on that tree. We're going to see precisely how every single mark is either won or, lost.
Okay, so here's the plan. We'll decode the question, starting with part A on probabilities, then move to the calculation in part B. After that, we're going to crack the examiner's code, figure out what all their lingo means, and to finish off, we'll look at all the different answers that would have gotten you full marks. Simple as that. All right, let's jump straight into part A. So the job here is to fill in a probability tree diagram. Pretty standard stuff, right? But what's really interesting is how they award the 2 marks available here. It's super specific.
Okay, check this out. Look at how they actually give you the marks. The first mark, what they call a B1 mark, is just for putting the number 0.7 in the right place for game 1. Seriously, that's it. 1 mark in the bag. Now, to get the full 2 marks, which they call a B2, you have to get all the other probabilities right. It's kind of like an all-or-nothing deal for that second mark, which is really good to know.
Okay, moving on to part B. Now we're getting into the calculation. This is where you'll use the diagram you just filled out to work out a specific probability.
Now, this is absolutely crucial. This is the M1, the method mark. The mark scheme literally says it's for a correct method and gives the example 7 times 0.7. But look closer. See those 2 little letters, FT? That stands for follow through, and this is a total game changer. It means that even if you messed up the numbers on your diagram in part A, as long as you use your numbers correctly here, you still get this method mark. How good is that?
So you do that multiplication, 0.7 times 0.7, and bam, there's your answer, 0.49. And that is the number the examiner is looking for to give you that final, shiny accuracy mark. So, we've thrown around these codes like B, M, and EFT. To really crush it in an exam, you've got to learn to speak the examiner's language. It's like having a cheat sheet. So let's quickly break down what these common abbreviations actually mean.
Think of this as your secret decoder ring for any mark scheme. B marks are for getting something right on its own, like filling in the diagram. M marks, well, they're for your method, proving you know how to solve it. A marks are for accuracy, getting the final answer spot on. And you usually can't get an A mark without an M mark first. We've already talked about FT, follow-through, but the other huge one is OE, which stands for or equivalent. And that little code leads us perfectly into our next point.
Okay, let's zoom in on that final A1, that accuracy mark. Remember that O or OR equivalent code? Well, because of that, there's not just one single way to write down the correct answer. The mark scheme actually gives you a bit of wiggle room, which is fantastic. So yeah, obviously 0.49 is the perfect answer. But guess what? Writing it as a fraction, like 49 over 100, is also perfect. Even writing 49% gets you that A1 mark. But, and this is super important, so listen up, there's a little warning hidden in the additional guidance. If you write your answer as 0.49 over 1, you get the method mark, but you get 0 for accuracy. A tiny little detail like that can be the difference between grades. Crazy, right? So, when you boil it all down, what's the key takeaway here? It's actually pretty simple. First, your method you're working out is just as important as the final answer, so always show it. And second, getting to know these codes like FT and OE is your superpower. It shows you how to grab marks even when you've made a little mistake somewhere else. Knowing the rules of the game is half the battle won.
And that really leaves us with one last thing to think about. Yeah, we just went deep on this one question, right? But the logic behind it, the B marks, the M marks, the follow-throughs, that stuff applies to the entire paper. So, the real question I have for you is, now that you know how this works, how are you going to use this logic to tackle every other probability question you come across?